Hello and welcome back to No More Shame. This is our second take. Wonderful. This is my good friend Lyric that I work with, and I'm very excited that she came on today to share her story with us. And I'm going to turn the time over to her now so she can tell us a little about her and share that story.
Hi, I'm Lyric, and I'm going to be talking about my molestation story. So, we're going to go with how it all happened, because I feel like you need the backstory of how I got into the situation. So, my parents were young. I mean, I think they were 23, 24, and they both worked full-time jobs. My mom was a mechanic, and my dad was a postman. So they were gone for long hours during the day. So I never really had anybody to watch me, and they didn't like that I was in daycare all the time. And they didn't like that it was not only expensive, because I had two working parents that really couldn't afford when we lived in California, and my grandma also worked, so it wasn't that anybody could watch me. So my mom decided to put me into a competitive cheer company because I was so good. I'm tootin', baby. I'm tootin'. But I am still good at tumbling, cheer. I was a flyer, and I've always been 4'7" for my whole life. I'm 4'10" now. We grew. But I've always been really short, so it would make sense for my parents to put me in something where I would thrive a little bit in. And so they enrolled me in this cheer program, but the same issues kind of happened where my coaches would have to stay super late because my parents couldn't get off, or they got stuck in traffic. And so one of the other cheer moms told my mom, hey, we live in a general area that's the same. We can pick Lyric up and babysit her if you need to. And my mom and dad never really had help. They did what they could for me, but it wasn't like they could just drop everything, because we literally couldn't afford to do that. So, so my mom was super appreciative, and she allowed said person to watch me. So it never started right off the bat. It was never right off the bat something I guess you could say inappropriate happened. It was just I would go up in her daughter's room and play with her toys. And her daughter was about I can't remember. At that time I had to be around 6 or 7, and her daughter had to be anywhere between 10 to 12, maybe 13. So she wasn't much older than me, but old enough to definitely have, I bet you remember kids, you were just oh my gosh, they're older. I want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And she had the Brat dolls and all the cool toys.
All the cool hit stuff.
I'm I only have Polly Pockets that I chew on their clothes. I want a Brat doll. So I used to think she was so cool. So, and again, she was a cheer sister. We all had cheer sisters, and she was kind of my cheer sister. So I knew her. It wasn't anything that I felt unsafe, or that I felt I could tell something was wrong right off the bat. So the lady's daughter who watched me, she was the one who molested me, not the actual babysitter. And I'm sure her mom didn't even know, to be honest. I think when I think back of that, I just remember she'd be okay, let's go upstairs and play. And to me, I don't want to sit with your mom and watch freaking CNN. Of course I want to go play. So I would go upstairs, and she would shut the door, and then she would, I can't remember the specific games all the time that she would do to make it happen. So I remember boyfriend and girlfriend, she would be you're the girlfriend and I'm the boyfriend, and I'd be okay. And at the time, it was never wrong, because it never again started out she was immediately touching me, or I immediately was touching her. It was more the fact that she was we're gonna play this game, and boyfriend and girlfriend hug and kiss, and they do that. And I was oh yeah, my parents kiss. I was,
That's what they do.
yeah, I was 6, 7 years old. Of course, I'm like, oh yeah, and I didn't have much friends. When I grew up in a condo. There was no one I could play with, so it was so exciting to have somebody who was older that had all these fun toys that like wanted to play with me.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember like truly, and I think it's because I blocked it out. Whatever happened in those games, I just remember that she would touch me, and then she would tell me where to touch her, like basically. But I physically, for the life of me, don't remember.
You just kind of
Yeah.
built a wall and pushed it out.
Yeah, I think it's for the better, though, to be honest, because I think maybe I would have handled it a lot different if I remembered every detail, but also, like, sorry to go, I am a rambler, and I will change, like, 20 subjects in one, so I'll return back to this, but this is important. I'm trying to get back on track, what I was saying, but
You blocked it out.
okay, yes, because I think no matter what, at that young age, you're so impressionable. Like, if you say jump, I'm gonna jump.
Yeah.
If you're going to say, Lyric, do this, I'm gonna do that. And like I was saying, I didn't have a lot of friends, so it was super exciting because I had my cheer friends, but again, my parents live in a condo that a pedophile lived above us. That's another story. That's a good one. We can go into it. It's fine. So like that's the area we lived in. So it wasn't. I never had a childhood where I got to play in the front yard or play in a backyard. It was only at my grandma and grandpa's house, which we would go to very often, but it wasn't often enough for my childhood to be probably what the typical is. So, anyways, we would play these games, and I wouldn't remember whatnot. Well, then I started getting to the point where I didn't want to play those games anymore. Like, it was like it was no matter what, it'd be like, Lyric, I won't give you this brat doll if you don't play. And it started getting to that point where she would start making it happen. It was no longer like that small, like, we can play this and then after we can do what you want to do. It was, you're not going to touch any of my toys if you don't do this with me. And I remember hating going over their house because I would dread to the point where all I wanted to do was play with toys that my parents couldn't afford to give me, and the only way I could get those toys were if I did something that I didn't really want to do. And so how it initially, I guess, got like found out was, I want to say Thanksgiving. It was a holiday, but I really strongly believe it is Thanksgiving this happened. And we were at my grandma and grandpa's house. And I know this sounds so crazy because when I say it out loud, I sound like a spiritual person, but I'm not. But it truly, that house had so much love in it. You would walk in and you would just, it felt like home. I've never been in a place in my life where I've walked in and I've just felt coddled and just been this is home. And I remember my mom had invited them over because they've done this huge favor for them. They've watched their kid, they feed me, they take me to cheer, they do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, we're 23, 25 years old, we don't have a lot of money, but if you guys are, because I believe her son or husband was deployed, so it was just the two of them.
So they had no one else.
So they had no one else. So my mom was like, you can come to Scott, my dad's parents' house, and we'll do, it's so much fun, it's so much family. So immediately when Haley got there, she asked, where's Lyric? And my grandparents had this really cool room where you would open, and this sounds so cheesy, but you have to remember this was early 2000s, you would open up the closet and there'd be a TV, and it was the coolest thing to me because they would have this whole setup of all these movies. And my grandma, I was the first grandkid, so when I say I was spoiled at my grandparents' house, I was very spoiled.
Yeah.
And that's where I had to keep most of my toys, because it's not that my grandparents ever were like, you can't take these. It's more the fact that it was just more convenient, because if I did forget them, I wouldn't have like a bunch of toys. But I was very spoiled. I don't want my parents tried their best. I mean, I don't want them to sound like they never got me Brat dolls. They did. And they did get me like toys, but it was just not like what the other kids had. And
Yeah.
so it was like I had the same like Jasmine with no feet, and I was like, she's crusty and all, but I don't want her anymore. Like, it's more of just like they did provide, and they did a damn good job, and they've still done a damn good job. But like my grandparents were just, they didn't want me to take the toys. I think more of the fact that I literally treated my toys like trash. I think it was more of like, Lyric, you lose your shoes, you lose this, you chew on the Polly Pocket clothes, like you're not taking this. But anyways, again, tangent, sorry. So anyway, she walked in the room, and I had on a movie with my VHS tape.
Yeah.
I would put it in, and I would get so excited because I would rewind it, and I would just watch it, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spoil it. Even though I've seen it like 20 times, I'm like, oh, I can't watch it. But like, I was. So I went in there, and I remember she immediately shut the door. And I don't know what it was that day, but I got mad. And my grandparents had a bunk bed, and I got off the bunk bed. I said, open the door. I don't want the door closed. And she goes, well, why not? We're just going to play. And I was like, I want the door open. I don't know why you would need to close the door. And so I opened the door, and she would shut it again. And I vividly remember being so angry, because I was like, I don't want to play. I don't want to play. I want to watch my VSH tape. I want to play a game. I don't want to play your games. And like, I got mad. And then I remember she goes, okay, we'll keep the door open, but if you don't want to play that game, maybe we could play Mom and Baby then. And I was like, I don't want to play any game. I just want to play, watch my movie, and just do this. Well, she just kept going and going. And so I said, fine, I'll play Mom and Baby. And I remember she was like, okay, you gotta lay on the bed. And so I laid on the bed, and she got on top of me. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable, and she was like, hi, baby. And it grosses me out, and like my skin curls to like think about that moment. But then my grandma walked in, and she immediately got off of me so fast. And I know this sounds stupid, because how does like a 6 or 7-year-old know, like, oh, like, shouldn't you know, your parents teach you, like, that's the no-no spot, this is this, and all this stuff. Like, of course my mom told me, but it's like, I'm a kid. Like, if somebody tells me to do something, and I know that sounds so stupid, but like, I did it, because I was also a really good kid. Anyways, but so she walked in, she goes, what are you doing? And Haley immediately goes, oh, we were just playing Mom and Baby. And I got so upset, because the minute she did that, it was like something weird clicked, that I knew it was wrong because of the way she acted. And I think it was literally, it was like, she just like pretended that she was just taking care of me like a mom, but she wasn't. You weren't doing that. And my grandma called my mom over, and she goes, hey, Melissa, will you get Lyric out of the room? And my mom was like, yeah. So my grandma had separated us, and then my grandma would never talk to the other girl. She was just like, we're going to separate them, and then I want to talk to Lyric individually. Like, I don't think that's what they were playing. And I remember my grandma sitting me down, and my mom was right there, and her being like, you know you can trust me, and you can tell me anything, and that you don't need to lie to me, because no matter what, like, basically I'll love you. Like,
yeah.
And so I sat there, and I was like, we were playing Mom and like Baby, but it wasn't like Mom and Baby. It was like the game she likes to play, like, at this time. Like, and my grandma was, I think, the best thing that they could have done in that situation, which I think I look back and why I handled it as well as I did was no one ever made me feel disgusting, because I never talked about this story. I mean, this is like really the first time I've really talked about it, like in full detail.
Yeah. And I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Trauma. Anyways, so it was, I think why I handled it the way I did was because my grandma looked at me and she goes, okay, that is fine. I'm very proud of you for telling me that. We are going to ask Haley and her mom to go, and that's it. And I know that sounds like brushing it under the rug, but no, because she didn't make me feel disgusting. She didn't make me feel like I did something wrong. She didn't punish me, which there's no reason to punish me, but people act in different ways. And she made me feel like, and definitely, by all means, we talked about it, like, I want to say like years ago, and she cared and she was upset, but why would she ever show that to me? Because I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, there was nothing I did that would warrant that kind of like attitude towards me or any negative. So my grandma said, you didn't do anything wrong. I don't ever want you to feel like you were like, you let it happen because you didn't know. And I think that's sometimes what people forget, is that you can be oblivious. You can be like, you don't know. And it's hard because if somebody's telling you one thing, if you were to look at me and tell me something and I have full trust in you, I'm going to believe you because I put that trust into you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the biggest things is like, don't like initially blame somebody. Like, it's nobody's fault. It happened, it's done with, but handle it in a good way. And then to go on to another like story, just to like preface. So my mom used to ask me all the time, Lyric, is anybody touching you? And when I tell you, I would get mad. Like, not just like, no, I would be like, why are you saying that? I don't like the way you're telling me that. Why do you always ask me that? And then fast forward to like now, because when I was talking about it with my friend, I was so defensive and upset because it was happening. And I was lying because somebody was touching me. Somebody was doing this stuff that my mom kept asking me. And my mom later opened up after what happened, because I think this is important too, to like put in this, why also I think I handled it very well, was my mom was molested and raped by her grandfather when she was a kid. And same thing happened. She would go there to go get babysat, and my mom and my aunt are 1 year apart.
Oh, okay.
And my mom they used to immediately, from what she remembers, she would go in the closet, and her sister would go in the closet and hope that he just forgot about them. And obviously he didn't. And my mom used to volunteer to go first all the time, because even though my mom was the younger sister, and this sounds so horrible to like say about my aunt, but my aunt is truly a strong woman. She's a great woman, but my mom knew even at that age, and my mom had to be the same age as I was, she knew that my aunt was a lot weaker than she was. And my mom used to say I had to do it because I had to protect her. Like, my mom has always been, even to this day, the strong one.
Yeah.
And that sounds like horrible to say, but she really is. She's so strong. So it would happen, and he would take turns. And so my mom used to ask me that all the time, because she said that no one ever asked her. And she used to feel so sick because my grandma worked 2 jobs. Her dad had just died. And no one can help her. So same situation. A little bit different, but same situation. My grandma had nowhere else to go, and brought her to who she thought. So fast forward, I have now 3 siblings, and like, again, when I was talking to my friend, I never really thought about it because, again, me and my mom don't talk about this, and I think it's a mutual respect of we don't bring it up because it's in the past and it's no longer affecting our future, so we need to leave it there. At least for me, because it's not like I'm ever going to forget what happened. I can tune it out as much as I already have, but it was never my fault, and I'm never going to feel like it's my fault, because what she did is she has to live with that.
Yeah.
Like, she's gonna have to live with that and know that that's what she did. And part of me feels like it may have happened to her, because how are you that young? She's also that young. How
did she know any of that?
How did you? And so it's like it's a cycle. It's like it's a vicious cycle of just like constant mental and physical abuse. Like, you have to think about it, like, just it happens to her, so she's gonna do it to somebody else. And I never did that to somebody else, but it's a cycle that probably goes down and affects more than just that person. So you're hurting a whole line of people just from one thing, and a big thing. But so with my mom now, I have those 3 siblings, and again, I never really thought about it, but my mom doesn't let anybody watch my siblings at all. Not friends, not family. She only asks me. Do you know how annoying I used to get? Like, I used to be like, 116, why can't he watch himself? Like, all of this stuff. I used to get so mad, but then I forget. I really do forget, and I sit there and I go, oh my gosh, because someone trusted her with somebody, she trusted somebody with me. And
she's just afraid.
Yeah, and I was like, one was family and one was a friend. And it's crazy because I think I punish her sometimes, and not in like a way where I'm just like, I don't want to do this, you ask too much of me. But then I forget that she's not asking too much of me. She just sits there and she doesn't want to bring up something that was both traumatic for her and I.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of weird how it's affected my life, because I didn't ever really think about it till a couple days ago. So it's crazy to really see, though, the effect it still has, where I now watch my siblings because my mom's still scared that something could still happen to them. So, and the youngest one is 10, so yeah.
Things could happen.
And it could still happen. I mean, no matter what, it's crazy that you could leave like your kids with somebody thinking you can trust them, and you can't, and it's sad. But yeah, that's my story.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and especially with how traumatic that was. I appreciate you being willing to talk about it. Just some questions I thought of while you were talking. So when that was all going on, did you ever feel like you were doing something wrong? That it was your fault at all? Because that's one thing that, like, I've heard and like learned that like perpetrators will try to make you think that it's your fault. Did she ever try to make you think it was your fault?
No, I think also it's something different because she also was so young that I don't think she had that ability to project onto me.
Yeah.
But no, she never did. It was more of the fact that it was manipulation, and I won't give you this toy if you don't do it. It was more of just like, she wanted something, so she found something I wanted. She just manipulated it.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think she ever made it feel like it was my fault, because she wasn't old enough to learn that kind of skill yet.
Yeah. So with I'm trying to think of a way to word the question here. Oh, thank you. So when you first came over, was it like the first time you came over, did she immediately start right then and there, or was it kind of like it just slowly?
Oh, it was slowly. It was like,
Okay.
I think what she was doing was, at least like from what I can justify, is like showing me how cool her stuff was and all the stuff she had and what she could do for me, in the sense of like, look at, I can give you like this rat doll, I could do this, and me being so memorized because I had two hardworking parents that couldn't just drop a ton of money to buy me all these toys. So
And
to
say,
me,
here you go.
yeah, here you go. Like, so it was super exciting for me. But yeah.
So you've mentioned that you've kind of have blocked it out. Was that kind of like your way of coping with the situation?
Yeah, because when I think about it now, like, it's, how could you not get, like, I know this is a weird way to put it, but like the ick, like my skin, like curls, like when I think about her being on top of me, or like I physically think I blocked it out because maybe my mind and my body knew if I were to remember those things that I wouldn't be who I am. I know it sounds cheesy. I wouldn't be who I am today, because I'm pretty loving. I'm pretty like outspoken, loud, and
You are. She is.
and so I think that part of me would have been, and this was like a little bit damaged. Like, and I think for my own mental sake, I blocked it out because it was something I didn't want to remember, which why would you want to? But yeah.
Was there any other way that you coped with the situation? Like, did you ever go to like therapy for it, or did you like?
Nope.
It was just like you kind of talked with your family, and that was.
Well, I think how I coped with it was really like truly my grandma making me feel like I wasn't disgusting. It wasn't, there's nothing that I did that was wrong. Like, when I tell you that house was full of love, like I can't express it to you because it really was full of love. And she just would wrap me up and just be like you're always going to be safe here. And it, like, I think a lot of it was I put so much trust and I left it at that. I left it because also, again, maybe it's because my family didn't know how to handle that situation, but the best thing they did was she never watched me again. My mom pulled me out of that chair and put me into, which is cute because when I think about it, my mom was like, this other place really wanted you. I was like 6 or 7. What do you mean this other place? What? And I was a very strong tumbler, so she was like, yeah, they saw you tumble and they reached out to me, and I was so excited. So my mom gave me another opportunity, and I know, like, oh my gosh, your mom put you back in cheer, like, but no one ever watched me in cheer. Nobody ever picked me up. It got to the point where my grandma made it work, my mom made it work, and they were able to. I mean, I maybe had sometimes a couple coaches take me home, but they were very good people. Like, very good people where my mom was like,
yeah,
I'm trusting with my kid. Like, there was no stops ever, if that.
Yeah, well, and thinking back on, like, it wasn't even your last coach, it was the coach's daughter.
Well, it was one of the other team, so one of my cheer sisters.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So it was another mom. And the sad thing is sometimes I think that mom didn't even know. But then when I think about what she did, it's I think a lot of it too is somebody was doing it to her too.
Yeah, for such a young age to be doing that.
I understand curiosity. As a kid, you want to be like, ugh, what is that? Like,
yeah, the body is a weird thing.
Yeah,
like.
So I totally understand. And sometimes I get, like it's weird because I never would have thought it would have been another girl, to be honest. Like, that's something that, and it's crazy because I don't ever really hear too much about it being another girl that molests a girl.
Well, and I think you're right when it's like when you hear, you know, a sex offender or whatever, like, we probably all picture this creepy looking guy who's just disgusting looking, maybe, like, you know, we all have that
white van.
Yeah, like, we all have that image that we go to, and so we don't picture it being someone that we know, or someone that, in your case, like someone who was just a few years older than you, and the same gender. Like you were obviously picturing probably, like I said, a creepy old guy with a white van saying, "Hey, I got candy in here. Like jump on in."
Yeah. Well, it is just so weird because sometimes I know this is gonna sound messed up when I say it out loud, so maybe cut this if I don't liking it. But like that might also be why I handled it so well, was because it was another woman and I wasn't like being like sexually like explored by a boy. And I know that sounds like, but I'm just trying to wonder because sometimes I really don't know why I handle it the way I did. And my mom handles her, because I don't want to say this is trauma anymore because I've let it go. I will never sit here. I mean, I will always remember it, but there's a time you have to let things go. Because the only thing that's hurting is you. So she doesn't have any power over me. She's not going to have anything over me. You did what you did. You have to live with that. And I'm going to go live my life and learn from this. You know what I mean? So, but me and my mom handle it the same because she often handles her trauma with humor. And that is how I'm 100%, like, I love sick jokes. Like, you know, like, when people are like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm crude humor. That's what it's called. Crude. I love crude humor. And, like, yeah, like, before we even started, I was like, let's talk about how I got molested. Like, it's like, to me, that's how I cope with it because it is something that, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. But it's just how my brain tries to process it. It can't take it seriously because I don't want to. I don't ever want to. And that sounds really weird to say because it's not that I don't want to take it seriously. It's just that.
But I think I get what you're saying. Like everyone has different coping mechanisms, and if like that's what helps you. Like some people might think that sounds really weird, or like kind of messed up. But like that's what's helped you. So in all reality, like I don't think anyone can judge you or blame you for that's the way you've coped with it because that's what worked for you.
Yeah, it's definitely worked because I've like tuned it out, which is a blessing and a curse because sometimes I wish I could remember to really heal from it because I don't think, like how you were saying, like my grandma did help me cope, but like sometimes like it does bother me that like I'm forgetting things that maybe could have like been worse than they are, but could not comprehend it, so I let it go. Yeah.
So before I ask the last question, I just want to once again, I really do want to thank you for coming on because I know that for a lot of people, for anyone who goes through this, it's a very hard and traumatic experience and not something that everyone wants to talk about, especially in a situation like this. So I really do appreciate you being so willing to come on. And again, we've already recorded this when the camera died, just so you'll know.
I gave the best response.
She did. But I hope I didn't reopen any trauma for you by asking anything. And
I'm gonna go home and cry. So
yeah,
it's fine.
it's all my fault. Thanks, great. And I think it's amazing that you had such a wonderful family who supported you with everything because a lot of people don't have that or don't always. And so I think it's so great that you had a grandmother who was willing to ask questions and your mom who was willing to ask the questions. And once they found out what was going on, it wasn't like they acted mortified, and I'm sure inside they were acting that way, but to your face it was like, you've done nothing wrong and we love you. And I think that's wonderful that they treated it that way because I'm sure it made it feel like if anything were to ever happen again that you really could go to them and everything would be fine. So I just want to ask the last question now, which is what advice would you give to anyone who is going through or who has been in the same situation as you've been?
So I would say no one knows you like you, and you need to take care of yourself. Being I was so young, I think it was easily forgotten, just like, you know, you open a present, you're like, wow, cool, poop, boom, gone. It was like out of sight, out of mind. They've taken me out of this situation, it was gone. But for somebody who is older that's struggling with something that may have happened where they can't forget it, they don't have that kind of luxury, which is sad to say, but when you're a kid, you don't remember everything. So I would say do what's best for you, and yeah, that's kind of it. like that. That's a good advice.
No, I think that was great advice. And as I was saying earlier, like everyone is different. So even though someone else might have the same age as you, had a similar experience, like as you pointed out earlier, you cope through humor. And what they need to do is going to be completely different for them.
Or just shit on their front lawn.
Or do that.
Yeah. Take a massive dump. Drink coffee before you do it. Having shit everywhere. Have you ever seen that episode of Hall Pass where she shits all over them? That's what you're gonna do.
There you go. Advice from
Take
Lyric.
back your power, baby. Woo! I'm sorry if you can't show that one.
Once again, I appreciate you coming on today. If anyone has any questions, like, am I able to like leave your Instagram or anything?
Yeah.
Like on the YouTube page or anything, I'll leave your name or your link so they can reach out to you for any further questions if they want to like get advice.
Yeah.
So anyone who's still out there watching, I appreciate you finishing the episode and I appreciate you coming on and I hope that if you haven't yet that you subscribe to hear many more wonderful episodes like Lyrics and people who are coming out to share their stories. And I hope this has helped you today. So thank you and take care.